So I was thinking about the fact that Bitcoin changes how we create value for one another. So it completely changes creative work. And now, let's say for example, if you wanted to post something on social media, if you want to post like our live stream that we did last week, for example, if we want to post something on social media and we haven't really found an audience yet, if we haven't really found if we haven't really started a business yet, what we can do is we can share this QR code at the corner here, the one that's above Forest. We can share this QR code, and some random person who sees our video can send us value because they find value in what we're doing. So they give us value because they see that what we're doing is adding to their day. It's giving them something and they like it. So they want to pay us for it. And I think, like I said, I think this is going to completely change how social media works. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
It completely changes it because there's no permission either for the act of monetization, right? Like a lot of small YouTubers, their goal is to get that 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch hours. You have to hit these milestones before you're allowed to make money from what you're creating. Whereas with something like Bitcoin, with Lightning, with this QR code, you actually don't need any of that. You don't need any permission. You can just create, and if people find value in it, regardless of some overarching corporation that decides whether you're, and even beyond that, right? Not just the watch hours and time, but the censorship that can happen, the demonetization of channels based on what you're creating. Does it fit within a certain allowance of what's allowed on that platform? With something like this, you can create whatever you want, and if people find value, they can pay you. It totally changes everything.
I think the other part of it too is just how what Bitcoin does. Like in the old system, in the legacy system, in the social medias, aside from the monetization and how long you have to wait for it, and how unmotivating that can be, how frustrating that can be when you think that you're doing a lot, and you're getting a bit of traction, but then you got to wait for 4,000 watch hours and then a subscriber count. This way, it's like you can make one video. If it's really good, you can get paid that day. And from the audience perspective, instead of having to put in your credit card information, your full name, your address, your this, that, or a monthly payment, you could send as much as you want to instantly without any of that information. So not only is it, more efficient, zero friction there, but also from the audience perspective, like the way they sell data these days and collect data, there's just so much that to be unwound from that just kind of like it's so in line with Bitcoin in terms of like a peer-to-peer. There's nobody in between here now. If somebody wants to give us value, they scan the QR code or just type in an email address, like a Lightning address. Very simple. No name, nothing needed. So pretty cool. I think that it is kind of where we're headed to. I think that we're just kind of like the pioneers in it right now.
Yeah, and just to stack on top of what you guys are saying there, there's also the fact that we don't have to pay fees, right? When we get paid by YouTube, for example, they're going to take 40-50% of our overall fees. And I think this leads to actually more and more people being able to do creative work because there's no barrier to entry. So because let's say what you were saying there, Jor, people have to wait 1,000 until they get to 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 hours of watch time. They don't have to do that anymore. So we got paid, let's say, for example, from that last live session, we got paid by our viewers, the people who found value in our content. But at that point, YouTube hadn't paid us anything yet. So that's just massive. And then on top of that, you can use Bitcoin to get paid for. I mean, it doesn't have to be videos. It doesn't have to be social media. It could be things that you make physically, right? If you have, let's say you start a small business in some country in Africa where there's no financial system, but you can get paid in Bitcoin. Before Bitcoin, there was no way for you to actually get paid and store your wealth. So I think what's going to happen is the market for product that people are willing to pay Bitcoin for is just going to increase and increase until, and actually that's what leads to the prices trending to zero as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything goes down in Bitcoin terms. And just to go back to the internet, we've decided throughout just using it that the way we would monetize the internet in its entirety almost is through advertising. And advertising is like, it's not only that there's a third party curating that advertisement, but then there's an advertiser paying that third party, and then there's just middlemen over middlemen. So they're all extracting value, and they're hoping that that advertisement ends up leading to a sale, and they're paying you part of that profit. It's all like sort of third order derivative effects of actually selling more stuff, of pushing consumerism. So that's basically how the internet has been able to function. That's how companies have been able to create platforms, is through advertising. And I think that there's a large portion of people that don't really think that's a good way to go. Like, I think we've been oversaturated with ads. We don't need more stuff. We don't need more consumption. And if we could actually begin to eliminate some of that and actually pay for our usage, I think that that would make a better internet, right? Just in its entirety.
Yeah, I think it's in the last, I would say, a couple of years. That's one thing I've tried to learn as much as I can about it. There's a term in Bitcoin called value for value, and I think that this kind of ties exactly with that. I think that that's where things are going to right now. It just changes the whole dynamic of everything, and I think that there's a lot of different platforms now. Kind of going off what Forrest was talking about there, where YouTube has kind of been the thing. That's what everybody goes to. It's where most people hang out. But there's so many issues with that, and I think not only with the advertisers, but think about from like our perspective. If we were getting paid by somebody to do this or to sponsor our show, there's enough censorship online right now, I think, between YouTube, between Twitter, between all these different Facebooks. If we don't have to censor ourselves from the advertisements, and even if we don't necessarily read from a script, I think that I've worked with advertisers before, and it's something you have to worry about. It's in the back of your mind. You can't necessarily speak the way you want to, I think, when somebody else is paying you to work. Whereas in this case, it's on our terms. We own our voice here. Nobody's influencing that voice. And I think that's just another step in the right direction of decentralization.
Have you guys considered how this could actually lead to a lot of disruption in the stock market, where let's say you have companies right now that are able to produce products, and the only reason why they're able to produce those products and they have no competition is because of how the financial system is designed. So let's say, for example, we have Walmart. Walmart has these massive deals with, let's say, with Mastercard, with Visa, with American Express, and they're probably paying them a lot less compared to some random mom and pop shop. So let's say Walmart may be paying 1% in fees versus the mom and pop shop may be paying 3-4%. So that 3-4% difference, or that 2-3% difference, it's a barrier to them actually making a profit and surviving. And then on top of that, instead of working for minimum wage right now, you can earn whatever you can with the value that you create. And then this is another topic that we were discussing before, but you can wait to turn your satoshis into whatever you want. And then whenever you turn them into whatever you want is when basically you got your wage. So what I mean by that is, let's say we got 20,000 satoshis for our last live session, and we just leave those 20,000 satoshis in that wallet for the next 20 years. We don't touch it. At that point, who knows, what if that 20,000 satoshis is worth $20,000, right? Today we can buy, what can we buy with $20? Maybe 10 loaves of bread. In 20 years with $20,000, maybe we'll be able to buy 500 loaves of bread with that amount of Bitcoin. So what it does is it lets you set your own wage in a way, and I think it just makes the world a little bit more competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that going off of that, the 20,000 sats, I think that that's probably a big reason why a lot of people aren't doing this right now, is because they see, 20,000 sats to us is obviously much different than 20,000 sats to somebody who doesn't really, value Bitcoin as much as we do. So I think that you have to get to that point of understanding of what this is going to probably turn into. And then it totally changes your whole perspective there. Instead of getting $20 per hour for doing a live stream between the three of us, Rajat, I don't know where you're buying your bread, but I think I might get one loaf of bread here for $20. But that's the same kind of thing. So if you think about it that way, instead of having to just earn Bitcoin, I think there's a couple different ways to look at it. I think you could say, I'm going to keep going to work. I'm going to keep adding value to the world. Anything excess that I have, I'm going to put into Bitcoin. And then at least you're subsidizing a portion of that wage, whatever that may be, because you have living costs. You got food, you got rent, you got all these different things you have to spend some of that money on. But whatever you have left, you put that into Bitcoin and you hold on to it for a long time. Then that actually bumps up your wage today for when you spend it in the future. And so that's one aspect of it. And I think the other one would be, because you might be wondering, well, like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea in theory, but this could be something that you just kind of do on your own time at night, in the morning, whenever you get some free time. Think of it as like a Bitcoin side hustle where you're just adding value to the world. You're talking about things that you enjoy. You don't need to spend that, so you can kind of put it away for a while. And then your wage for whatever time you put into that is going to be exponentially higher at the point when you go to spend that in the future. So that's kind of how I think about all this stuff.
Trying to earn in sats. I mean, it's a better way to go because you are earning in something that appreciates in value over time and appreciates in purchasing power. Just makes a lot of sense. I mean, you can earn in fiat and swap to sats, but I think that the future and even the present, I mean, we have the example of our past live stream of earning in sats from it. But I think in the future, it's going to be even easier to earn in Satoshis, earn in Bitcoin. There's going to be more ways to do that. I mean, I already see it. Like, there's all sorts of different ways you can do that now. A lot of it is content creation, like through platforms like Noster and things like that. But I don't know. I just see it like it's a no brainer. It's frictionless, no fees, like and you can pay in such small amounts, right? Like one Satoshi is is 1/10 of a cent. So you can really get very precise with the amount of value transfer that you do over the internet for value creation. Whereas there's so much more friction with the fiat system, and all that friction is value extraction away from the value creator and the I guess the value consumer.
Yeah, like if you think about it, when I used to do these webinars, so I used to do webinars, I'd try to help people to understand how Bitcoin works. I would get paid. So the webinar was $35. I'd get paid 30, and the $5 were taken by Stripe. They were taken by other random. Actually, maybe it wasn't 30. Maybe it was like 32, 33, whatever the number was. But I would get paid less. Partly, number one, because of the exchange, because I would get paid in US dollars and then I'd exchange it to Canadian dollars. They'd take their 3-4% exchange fee. Then there would be the payment processors who would take their cut. I think I would lose like 7 to 10% of the payment, every single payment. And it forced me to increase the prices. And it made me charge my customers more when I'm not even getting the whole amount that I'm charging. So it was like I said, the system it creates barriers to entry. Like what you said, Forrest, it makes it harder and harder for people to create value. It's the whole system is designed to centralize wealth with a small group of people. And then back what you were saying, Jor, the old system is so centralized, it doesn't allow for decentralization. It doesn't allow people to create value on their own because you have to go through a credit card company. You have to go through some kind of payment processor who's going to make it so much harder for you. If you want to pay with cash, then you have to offer change. You have to give them exact amounts. With Bitcoin, you don't have to deal with any of that. If you pay them in Satoshis, you go to your Lightning wallet, you send them the exact amount of Satoshis, and the transaction is over.
You know what I see with this is we're complaining about the toll booth operators of MasterCard, Visa, Interac, Stripe, and we're the fortunate ones. We live in a developed nation where we actually have those financial tools, but we're still seeing, okay, these are massive problems because this pushes up the price for everyone involved because we have a set income that we need to make from what we do. And what I see is there's so many people around the world that don't even have access to these tools. They can't set up a MasterCard payment system for their small business, but they could print off a QR code and put that on their, at their business, and people could scan that. The vast majority of people around the world have smartphones now. They're, because of the deflationary effects of technology, they've gotten so cheap, people can, access cell phones with unbelievable technology on them and have access to payment systems that don't charge them an arm and a leg to use them, like Lightning. So it's like And think of all the creativity that's been stifled, all the innovation, all of the creation that's been stifled because people did not have a way to accept a decent currency without it getting all that value stripped away by these toll booth companies. And now we're all on an equal footing with this. There's a better payment system. It's called Bitcoin. It's called layer twos on top of Bitcoin, and we all are equal now in this way. We all have the ability to create and earn in a fair way.
Yeah, there's a couple things I want to get into there. The first one is just think about all the hands that are being fed from that extraction between Visa, MasterCard, the banks. How many people are getting fed around the world just by extracting the middle piece there? It's crazy. So that's the first part. The second I'd say is that, yes, we are fortunate here in North America. We probably have the best functioning financial system on the planet. We're very lucky. But when you understand that Bitcoin is 100 times better than that, that just shows why we're so excited about this thing. Because if we're talking about being 100 times better than the best in the world, that's something worth exploring, I think. And the third one there is the unlock of the global economy. As Forrest talked about now, you don't need a bank account anymore. You don't need to ask anybody's permission to earn money. You can just, if you have an internet connection, you connect to the internet, you can reach every person on the planet, which is pretty cool. And I think that's the one thing for me within Bitcoin where people say, okay, well, the current market's about $900 trillion worth. That's the ceiling on this thing. So they can't foresee a world where Bitcoin actually exceeds that, or in some way, like they do the math on the price times the Bitcoin, compared to the current market cap that we have on the world right now. But that's the centralized world. When we move into this world, that unlocks the whole global economy. We have no idea what that's going to lead to. There's no ceiling on that aspect of it.
Yeah,
so
that's
why you should never say that there's a price cap on Bitcoin, how high this thing can go. There is no ceiling because everybody's thinking in that old centralized, manipulated, and controlled system. And it's so different than the one that we're moving into now.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people have a lot of difficulty wrapping their heads around. Like, whenever I say Bitcoin's going to $1 million, they say, "Oh, no, it's worth too much. It's going to be worth $20 trillion." Then that's something that's not even, it's not relevant because Bitcoin is separate.
Yeah. And it creates a lot more value unlock, and the global GDP can increase because of Bitcoin. It's not just inflation is going to increase and balloon all of the assets and all of these, and Bitcoin is going to take from all of that as well. But it's the actual growth of productivity around the world will increase because of Bitcoin.
Yes. So think about how many people are locked out of it right now, just because of this, because of the financial system and the centralization. So, I mean, just kind of my last thoughts here, boys, would be, when people hear value for value, I think right now they think a lot about like going online, starting a YouTube channel, whatever. But just think about the first word of that, value for value. Just add value to the world. You could just do whatever you do and do it good and find a way to reach people around the world and offer that to them. It could be anything. It could be bookkeeping services. It could be house designs. It could be anything that people would get value from. Do that. Implement Bitcoin, and your life's going to change. You now have the entire world that you're selling to versus just either your country or your small local market. That's so huge.
And people, when they really put their time and their head into it, they get very, very creative. Like, there are people who are selling little their little guides for how to work out, or their cookbooks. People are selling cookbooks. They're making videos teaching people how to make the dishes that they make every single day, and they monetize that. That's crazy. That's the way that the world should work, and I feel like that's where the world should be going. But most people are ignoring Bitcoin. They still think that Bitcoin is going to zero. They haven't really put their time into it, and until I think most people do discover Bitcoin, the Bitcoin economy can keep growing. It can grow forever. It can literally grow forever. It can keep growing for the next 10, 20, 30, 50, 1,000 years.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was going to take on to that too, is like, as good as this all sounds, just imagine what the price and the value and the perception of Bitcoin is going to be once people want it, once people get to this point of understanding this, yes, this is better. Yes, this is going to preserve my purchasing power. I want to be paid in Bitcoin. Think about what that does for the demand of Bitcoin, because we know the supply going forward, the demand is fluctuating, but consider this, factor this into it. The demand's going to skyrocket, and we know what's going to happen with the price at that point.
Yeah. Well summed up, both of you. And if you guys do find some value from what we've created, you can use this code. You can scan it with your Lightning address, and you can send us some sats, and that would be highly appreciated.
Yeah, there was actually a comment on the YouTube channel today, because we had that on one of the videos. So, I mean, first of all, thanks to, we don't know where these are coming from. It's pretty cool that there's people sending sats in from all over the world. It's awesome. But we'll also put in the comments at the top here the address for people who actually can't scan the QR code. You can just type it in like an email address and send some sats there. So we appreciate it. Thanks for another great episode today, boys. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Awesome.